Well, here's a couple of questions. How can you help yourself see God more on a daily basis? And what are some ways you can help yourself to view crisis as an opportunity for growth and not distraction? Get them to talk. It's their job right now to share. How can you help yourself to see God more on a daily basis? What are some ways that you can help yourself to view a crisis? Well, here's the deal. You step back and you say, what's God doing here? What is God doing and how can I join him? That's what they need to have that perspective. Well, this extra point is very special to me. I got this from a friend when we were in a Bible study at the United States Air Force Academy with the coaches down there and their football staff. And General O. Sampson, he's a great godly man. And one time we were talking about pain and trials and he's been in combat in Vietnam and all those places. And he said, you know what? Pain can be a good thing though. And we all kind of looked at him and said, what are you talking about? Pain can be a good thing. No, pain is a good thing because it has the ability to force us to focus our attention on what is really important right now. When I thought about, geez, in combat, all of a sudden you're worried about this and that and all these other things. You get shot, you need to take care of that wound right now. You need to hone in on that. And that's what General O was saying, man. It's such a neat deal. Sometimes maybe God is using crises to get us to focus our attention more. And it's a very important thing. So we always tell that story a little bit. Now, the last thing in point 3, you're going to notice that there's a coach's challenge. There's a little whistle in your book. Anytime you see this little whistle, it's a big deal. All right. And I want to challenge the coaches in this thing. The coach's challenge is as you deal with difficult situations, ask yourself, what is God doing? And how can I use this to help myself or someone else get closer to God? For instance, they're in an argument they're watching 2 players argue, or their own children. What can they look at the situation and they go, man, what's going on here? And how can I help each of these people get closer to God through this crisis? You have a parent that's arguing with you. It's another way to integrate your faith into it. How can I help this person get closer to God in this situation? Doesn't mean you got to share the gospel. Again, it's share the gospel at all times and sometimes use words. Maybe it's just letting them speak. Let them share what's on their heart, and then you get to speak to them. Now, as we jump down to the how to take action or how to see trials as growing points and not breaking points, focus in on these 4 points and remember, don't tell them not to be so focused on the crisis that you're unable to see God in it. Excuse me. That's the first big item. And then the second thing is remember God's going to use trials to strengthen you. Third thing is prior to deciding how to handle your situation, ask God, am I going to handle this my way or God's way? Because go ahead and do it your way. You'll get crushed every time. I've got a good friend who runs a very large government agency. And he comes to me and I'll call him up and I'll say, hey, how's it going today, Jeff? And he'll say, well, I was doing great. Except by the end of the day, I realized that about half the day I was telling God, hey, you're busy, God. I'll take care of all these decisions. I'll get this one. And then I finally realized at the end of the day, after I had goofed up all those other decisions, that I need to say, God, what do you want me to do here? Because God's not too busy to help us. So, number 4, though, pray for guidance and that you will stand firm in your faith to honor God. Hey, we're on a journey, on a quest. This is a constant process, and it cannot happen without prayer and being in the Scripture and having support around you. Remember, we want to have a perspective that we're going to mature through adversity and through difficult situations. If you don't have people around you speaking greatness into you and helping you through that, it's going to be a hard road. Remember, Satan wants to isolate you. He wants to isolate your coaches. It's just like you as a facilitator of this group. These DVDs should encourage you, because you're doing great things with this group and you're speaking truth into their lives and helping them discover how to integrate their faith into their entire life. This is huge, because coaches can impact thousands of people. Well, again, look at the scripture, and it's Isaiah 7, verse 9. If you do not stand firm in your faith, you will not stand at all. You've got to believe and live by faith, not by sight, because the world's going to tell you, don't do this, don't do that. You're wrong, we're right. Listen, if you truly are transformed and you're on a quest to be like Jesus, you're not going to care what the world thinks. You're going to do what God tells you to do. Hey, next week we'll jump into week 5. Can't wait to see you. Their homework for this week, again, is you're going to have them come back and talk about how did they get people closer to God and themselves closer to God in difficult situations, and how did they gain God's viewpoint in all crisis situations. You're doing great. We'll see you next week. God bless you. And just keep giving them heaven.